So a lot of new Nintendo Switch 2 games have seemingly leaked online before their official reveal from Nintendo or other third parties, because while we inch closer to that April 2nd date that we know to expect a Nintendo Switch 2 focused direct straight from Nintendo, with a lot of confirmation of first and third party software alike that will be headed to the platform within presumably its first launch year. Like, I don't think we're going to see games super far out for 2026 and beyond, but we will no doubt get the rest of the 2025 software roadmap for the most part revealed at this event, most likely, and a ton of third party support. Well, you've probably seen a lot of different rumors and leaks in the past suggesting Microsoft is planning a ton of titles to come to this platform, in addition to Ubisoft, EA, Take-Two. Like, you put in all the big publisher and developer names, they're pretty much in line to have a wide library of games supported on Switch 2 due to the power upgrade around it that we should be able to safely expect in this console. And we now have some more names chiming in on just what games we might be able to expect around the launch window of this platform, not to mention some more reconfirmation of the power level of this thing, which is actually very exciting to me, because we're not going to be able to expect all of the modern day AAA full budget scale projects if the console at the end of the day is not powerful enough to run them. And at least according to one reliable insider, at least generally reliable overall with their track record, that's going to be a non-issue for us Nintendo fans this time around. And with the momentum of the Switch 1 sales leading into this presumably successful Switch 2 follow-up, we should have a lot of exciting titles to expect for this console's life cycle. So we're going to get on the same page with all of this new info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick it off with discussing the power level of this console, and really the root of, can we expect a ton of third-party modern-day AAA offerings to show up or not? Because if the console's not powerful enough, we might be in that same situation as we were with Switch 1, where certain games only come over as cloud ports, or they just don't come over at all. And we have some very nice reassuring words from PH Brazil, who recently uploaded a video here on YouTube, and I will have all of this stuff linked in the description down below should you want to go into more detail on what's being claimed here yourself. But you can first see the following post over on our Gaming Leaks and Rumors, which reads, PH Brazil, Switch 2 is powerful enough that every third party is considering supporting it with their most ambitious AAA titles. How powerful is the Switch 2 really? Powerful enough that basically every third party is considering supporting it with their most ambitious AAA titles. This is very different from what has happened in the past, when some of these companies would support Nintendo platforms with conversations of older games or maybe recent but not so ambitious ones. He specifically mentions Ubisoft, EA, Bandai Namco, Capcom, Sega, and Microsoft. Now, while there have been some interesting spec leaks floating around out there, and even some power profiles of supposedly what the console will be clocked at in both handheld and docked mode, we have yet to really see the big footage from, very taxing games running on this console yet, and we may not get that footage until something like an April Nintendo Direct. Well, that's where reassuring comments like this from PH Brazil help back this up, and also a content creator on the platform that I will link their video in the description down below, by the name of Sungrand Studios. This is a indie developer that actually also does content themselves for YouTube, and they analyzed the recent footage that we saw of presumably Mario Kart 9. Maybe it's called 10, maybe it's just called Mario Kart, or it's some kind of rebranding, who knows about the name, but you might have seen that trailer, and of course it was an off-screen type of setup where we saw it on the console and on the TV superimposed. Obviously that was all a digital rendering of a first look at the console that we got, and with compression and things on YouTube and various different issues of how you upload content and rewatch it on the web nowadays, it's hard to get a decent look at just how powerful, or some of the techniques that these developers are using to get visuals that look like what we saw in Mario Kart. And there's definitely a split online. Some people saw that trailer and thought this is obviously an upgrade from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and other people saw it and at first glance they really thought, well, this just looks like more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, arguably from some people saying maybe it doesn't even look as nice, bright, and vibrant as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But again, we won't spend much time on this, but this developer does go into just kind of some of the actual technical aspects of what's being used here, such as volumetric lighting. That is something that's very performance demanding from a console, and that's not something that Nintendo does with their current console in games, at least not frequently. They have shadows at far distances rendered in very high quality textures, and while not calling out ray tracing specifically, realistic lighting and reflections and surface imperfections, a lot of different details that this developer name drops from looking at this footage that again should just be more reassurance that a lot of these modern day AAA offerings won't have too much of a problem running on said hardware. And that's where the list of games we're about to go through get that much more exciting, because as long as they can all natively run on this next gen Nintendo hardware with no problem, you have all of these games presumably playable on the go whenever you want or at home via docked play, and we should be able to expect quality frame rates and resolutions for these games. As you can see, this post over on Our Gaming Leaks and Rumors, which comes to us from an insider by the name of Extus, and they claim the following games, some of which we've heard of before, other ones we have not, are headed to Nintendo Switch 2. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, Halo the Master Chief Collection at full price it seems, Diablo 4 currently scheduled for 2025 according to his sources, a Call of Duty game, he doesn't know which one, he speculates it's Black Ops 6, 2025 COD, or Warzone, Fallout 4, Starfield, and other games he mentions coming to Nintendo Switch 2 are Tekken 8 alongside the DLC and Elden Ring. Now I want to then cross-reference that list with some more comments from PH Brazil that do back up a lot of these games, where he says there's more games from Microsoft being developed for Switch 2 that I know of than any other company. So we've talked about at length in the past just how good of a working relationship Microsoft and Nintendo have had up to this point in time. I mean, just look at Nintendo Switch Online and them being able to secure some deals that once upon a time it was rumored would never see the light of day, such as GoldenEye coming over to the service. Of course, Microsoft got a version playable on their consoles as well for that, but Rare has the rights to that. Microsoft owns Rare, and so Nintendo had to pen a deal with Microsoft to bring that game over and use all of the original assets and really renew the contracts for those assets and the likenesses of Pierce Brosnan, all the other actors and actresses within that movie. The music rights, you name it, like a ton of stuff had to be worked out just for that to come over. Then you have, multiple other Rare games that we've seen make it to the service. And we also know, Microsoft gets that Nintendo has a large portion of the gaming audience nowadays. They want a lot of their games to be there, but on the current Switch, they are limited on which ones they can bring over. We've talked about at length how Microsoft has to make literally every modern day AAA offering that they have also run on Series S, and we are expecting the Switch 2 to fall somewhere in the realm of the Series S power when docked, and that also has an upgraded RAM capacity from the Series S, as we know to expect 12 gigabytes as opposed to the 10, which has been called out on the Series S even from developers of like Black Myth Wukong, saying that 10 gigabytes of RAM is really what held them up from being able to have their game effectively run on the Xbox Series consoles. So it makes a ton of sense that we're going to see a lot of Microsoft support on Nintendo Switch 2, and especially when you look at the messaging from Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella and all of the top brass at Microsoft just saying that everything's an Xbox now and they want you playing the Xbox content. They don't care what platform or what device you're doing it on. So I think that part's a no-brainer. But then to recap, just a list of different rumored games, which these ones are maybe not all coming from as reliable sources, but if you just want to look at a full list of exactly what's been called out and name dropped here in terms of third-party games that we should likely see show up at some point on the Nintendo Switch 2, presumably in the launch year or soon thereafterwards. You have this following post over on Twitter from Pirate Nation, which compiles a lot of these, and it says, here are the games rumored to be launching for Nintendo Switch 2. Mario Kart 9, a new 3D Mario game, potentially Mario Odyssey 2, Metroid Prime 4, an enhanced Zelda game like likely Breath of the Wild, Final Fantasy VI Remake with Rebirth following in 2026, Assassin's Creed Mirage, The Division, Rainbow Six Siege, a Mario and Rabbids collection, potentially including the first 2 games, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Alan Wake 2, Cyberpunk 2077, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Monster Hunter Wilds, Elden Ring a complete edition that includes the DLC, Grand Theft Auto 6 or potentially Grand Theft Auto 5, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Microsoft the Flight Simulator 2024, MLB The Show, Titanfall 2, and EA Sports games. So again, to me, we may or may not see all of these games ultimately make it to Switch 2, but all of these being in the conversation and a lot of different sources like Nate the Hate and PH Brazil hearing about the same type of games coming to Switch 2, that is very reassuring to hear, in addition to the comments of PH Brazil saying that anything that's modern day AAA even the most ambitious projects that are being brought to modern day platforms will be on Switch 2. You talk about a game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that's slated for 2026, according to Nate the Hate, that pushes the current gen console of the PS5 to its limits. Like literally the base PS5 can have a hard time running that game in certain areas and in certain segments. So to hear about the Nintendo Switch 2 having native ports of all these games also on their hybrid console is very reassuring, and I don't think it's where this support stops. As opposed to how we saw Nintendo have a true comeback story from the Wii U with the Nintendo Switch, and everybody was blown away by how successful it actually ended up being. That's not the situation we are in going from Switch 1 to Switch 2, where third-party developers have openly stated, like Bobby Kotick from Activision Blizzard went on trial and talking about the whole Microsoft merger with Activision Blizzard and all of that. Of course, he stated things like they missed the boat on the success of the Nintendo Switch and they regret not actually getting their studios ready to develop for that thing because they didn't know how much of a smash hit success it would be. So nowadays, whenever you see how much of a smash hit success the Switch 1 was, you see the kind of views and interest that is being displayed to us online from Nintendo's first look trailer alone with just a CG rendering of the console, and it's a no-brainer that everybody's going to want a slice of the gaming pie that comes from the audience that games on Switch 2, and that will largely catapult to really high levels of users right out of the gate soon after launch, with a lot of day one adopters that have had their Nintendo Switch since 2017. So you stop and think about all the third-party support in addition to all of the first-party content we will learn about from Nintendo later on, and this is a very exciting games lineup for a massive successor console from the Switch for Nintendo. So I personally couldn't be more excited about it, but that's where I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What do you make of this newest round of leaks and rumors about all of these different third-party games coming to Nintendo Switch 2? Are you excited to see any of the games we mentioned on today's list in the conversation? Starfield and Fallout 4 amongst many other Microsoft titles. Elden Ring's a big one for me. I want an excuse to replay that game again and just have it conveniently on the go or docked play whenever I want it. Diablo 4 is another big one we talked about. Like, what games are you excited for here in this list? And do you agree with some of the comments from PH Brazil and even this developer we talked about when it comes to the Switch 2's performance likely being in line with what we need it to be to run all of the modern day AAA offerings? Do you think that's what we will see happening, or do you think there's still going to have to be large concessions made for Switch 2 versions of the game compared to their PS5 and Series X and S counterparts? But make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.